hand seeking an escape, a brief respite from the endless routines that filled my life. As I wandered along the secluded paths surrounded by lush greenery and the salty scent of the ocean, I could feel a sense of mystery in the air. This was no ordinary island. It felt ancient, as if the land itself held secrets waiting to be discovered. I spent the day exploring the hidden coves and rocky outcrops that dotted the coastline. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over everything. And just as I thought I'd seen it all, I stumbled upon a path that led down to a small, hidden cove. The sight took my breath away. The water was impossibly clear, a shade of blue that seemed almost unreal, and the gentle waves lapped against the sand in a calming rhythm. It was the kind of place that felt untouched, hidden from the rest of the world. Drawn to its beauty, I moved toward the water's edge, slipping off my sandals and letting the cool water wash over my feet. Closing my eyes, I breathed in deeply, allowing the peacefulness of the moment to settle over me. It felt like I was the only person on the island, alone with my thoughts and the gentle murmur of the sea. But then, I felt it, a presence. I opened my eyes and looked up, my gaze settling on a figure standing a few feet away. He was watching me, his expression unreadable, and I could feel an intensity in his gaze that sent a shiver down my spine. His features were strong and defined, his dark hair slightly tousled by the breeze. He was both rugged and refined, as if he belonged to this place in a way that was almost otherworldly. I didn't speak, and neither did he. There was something about the silence between us that felt charged, like a tension that was slowly building. He took a step toward me, and I found myself rooted to the spot, unable to look away. His eyes were dark, piercing, and they held a curiosity that mirrored my own. As he drew closer, the sound of the waves seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of my own heart. There was something about him, something magnetic, that made me feel as if I'd been drawn to this place for a reason. Without a word, he reached out, his hand brushing against my arm. His touch was warm, gentle, and it sent a spark of electricity through me. "You don't belong here," he said softly, his voice low and rough, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. But there was no judgment in his tone, only curiosity. "Neither do you," I replied, my own voice barely more than a whisper. A slow smile spread across his lips, and I felt my breath hitch in my throat. His gaze traveled over me, lingering for a moment, before returning to meet my eyes. "Maybe," he said, his tone teasing, but his gaze remained intense. "But here we are." I didn't know what to say. There was a part of me that wanted to turn and leave, to break the spell that had fallen over us, but something held me there, rooted to the spot. His presence was like the island itself, wild, untamed, and filled with secrets. The sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over the cove, and in that moment, it felt as though we were the only two people in the world. Slowly, he reached out again, his fingers tracing a path along my arm, up to my shoulder. The touch was light, almost reverent, as if he were memorizing every inch of me. I closed my eyes, savoring the sensation, the warmth of his skin against mine. When I opened my eyes, he was closer, his face just inches from mine. I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, the way his gaze softened as he looked at me. His hand moved to cup my cheek, his thumb brushing against my skin, and I leaned into his touch, my heart racing. "I don't know who you are," I murmured, my voice barely more than a breath. "You don't need to," he replied, his voice a low murmur that sent shivers down my spine. lips brushing against mine in a kiss that was both gentle and demanding. I felt a surge of warmth, of desire, as his arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, growing more urgent, and I lost myself in the feel of him, the way his body pressed against mine, grounding me even as it set my senses on fire. His hands moved down to my waist, pulling me closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from him, the intensity of his touch. We sank down onto the sand, the waves lapping against the shore as the world around us blurred into a haze of sensation. His hands roamed over me, tracing the curves of my body, and I felt a shiver of anticipation as his lips moved to my neck, leaving a trail of warmth in their wake. Every touch, every kiss was like a spark, igniting a fire that burned deep within me. I moaned softly, my fingers tangling in his hair as I pulled him closer, my body arching against his. He responded with a low growl, his hands tightening on my hips as he moved against me, his movements both gentle and insistent. There was a rawness to it, a passion that felt as wild and untamed as the island itself. Our breaths mingled, our bodies moving together in a rhythm that felt both familiar and new. His hands slid down to my thighs, lifting me slightly, and I gasped as he moved against me, his pace quickening as the tension between us built to a crescendo. I felt myself teetering on the edge, my heart racing, my body trembling with anticipation. And then, with a final deep movement, we both shattered, the pleasure washing over us in waves that left us breathless. I clung to him, my fingers digging into his shoulders as I rode the waves of ecstasy, my body pressed against his. For a long moment, we lay there, our bodies tangled together, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. The world around us seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of us, lost in each other. Slowly, he pulled back, his gaze meeting mine, and I felt a warmth spread through me at the intensity in his eyes. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice filled with wonder. He smiled, a soft, enigmatic smile, and reached out to brush a strand of hair from my face. "A part of the island," he replied, his tone light, but there was a depth to his words that made me shiver. As the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the cove, he rose to his feet, holding out a hand to help me up. I took it, feeling the warmth of his touch one last time before he let go. Without another word, he turned and disappeared into the trees, leaving me standing there, alone on the shore. I watched him go, a strange mix of longing and contentment filling me. I knew that I would never see him again, but somehow I felt at peace. As I made my way back up the path, the memories of that night lingered, etched into my mind like a dream. The island had given me something I hadn't even known I was searching for, a moment of pure, unadulterated connection, a taste of something wild and free. And as I left the island behind, I knew that a part of me would always remain, forever tied to that hidden cove, and the man who had shown me a glimpse of something beyond the ordinary. Have you ever found yourself lost in a moment so powerful? It felt as though the world around you had disappeared. Share your stories, and let's explore the mysteries of connection and desire together.